few years' time. Please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Did I do okay? Is that good afternoon?
Yeah.
Close? Thank you. Okay. That is all the Swedish I know. So you'll find I have trouble standing still, so I'm going to move around a lot. I don't like keeping in one spot, but I'm very comfortable up here. So thank you to the organizers very much for having me here. Obviously, there's a natural link here between 99 NICU and what I do, because we connected some time ago, and I've lost track of how many posts are shared on the mutual sites, but it's been a very good relationship. So as far as conflicts of interest, I don't really have any conflicts of interest. I do have very recently engaged into a relationship with a European company, giving them some exclusive content, which you'll, I'm sure, hear about in the next few months as it starts to get published. But aside from that, I don't believe I'm conflicted in any way here. Where can you find me? This is in your slide set, but there's a number of sites, so Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, and there's a blog that I have called All Things Neonatal. Just so I know the audience, and I won't be insulted if no one puts up their hand, but how many people are already aware of all of this? Okay, so there's a few people. Okay. All right, and we have a poll that we'd like to do before we go on. Just for those of you that are on social media, the poll is, I don't know if you, yeah, you're going to pop it up.
You can see it on there on the server.
Okay, so yeah, the question is, what social media sites do you use? What are you aware of? And the reason I'm asking this is because one of the themes that you're going to hear about is that social media, at least the age of social media, is very much a two-way street as opposed to one-way, where we go out and seek information. The beauty of social media is you put things out, things come back to you. And so I may be, for example, completely missing the mark. You're going to hear where I am, and you've seen where I am, but maybe you're on sites that I'm not on. Maybe I'm missing connections with people. Do we have the results of the poll?
5 people.
5 people. Okay. Well, we have some ways to go.
Yeah. We have to wait a little bit.
We have to wait a little bit. Okay.
Let me see.
Doesn't like it. Well, maybe you can just tell me. So what sort of results do we have?
So we have, I think, half of them are Facebook.
Half Facebook, okay.
And people see them on their.
Oh, you can see them, okay.
So the only one who doesn't see it is you.
Okay.
We have some YouTube, family blogs, Twitter, Xing.
Sing?
Xing. It's
Don't know that one.
ResearchGate, Instagram. So.
Okay. All right, well, I have some work to do because I have to acquaint myself with some things that I'm unaware of.
Leave it at this stage.
Sure. So as far as objectives go, I have 4 main objectives today. So the first is, why would anyone want to do this? So what motivates people? Or I'll tell you my story. You heard a story just before, a very different type of story in the last presentation, but I'll tell you my story of how I got to where I am. The other thing I'd like to tackle is trying to redefine now in 2017 what it means to be an academic neonatologist. Okay. I'm going to share with you some of the far-reaching impacts. So what sort of impact can we have far beyond our own hospital, far beyond Sweden, for example? But I'm also going to be honest and tell you what some of the pitfalls are, because it's not all fun and games. There's some things that may have negative connotations about social media, so we're going to talk about that as well. So as far as motivations go, my story starts off with a child and a dog. Okay, so that's my son, Adam, and that's my dog, Monty. So the reason it starts off with a child and a dog, and then you're wondering what Minecraft is doing over there. For those of you who don't know Minecraft, it's a game. Imagine the whole world knows about Minecraft. So in any event, my son, who was 6 at the time, decided he wanted to do a blog. I knew nothing about this. I had a Facebook account, but I really didn't know anything about blogging, anything about really any of this world at all. And I had this dog. The dog was a puppy. He's a golden doodle, lovely dog. He was pride and joy as far as animals go, but he was crazy. He was up at between 4 and 5 in the morning every single day. And this went on for a year and a half. Every single day, 4 to 5 in the morning. And that's Winnipeg time, which would be sometime around 2 in the afternoon here. But for me, that was very early, and I just decided I couldn't be working at 4 or 5 in the morning. And everyone I know is thinking, why didn't you Ferberize the dog, let him cry out? And I tried, but it didn't work. So anyway, I couldn't sleep, I was up with the dog. So then my son one day came home from school and he said he wanted to do a Minecraft blog. So what happened was, we created Minecraft Cool Business. This was a dismal failure. We posted a bunch of things on here, it went nowhere, okay? Now you might think that in the face of that I would have decided to fold up shop and say I never wanted to do anything with blogging again. But what happened was, something happened with the CNN, the Canadian Neonatal Network, did a publication of something, of which I'm part of. But there was a publication that came out about unit acuities and outcomes and so forth. And Horatio's nodding, he remembers this. Anyway, I read this paper, and it was 4:30 in the morning one morning, and I was outraged. I thought the conclusion was wrong. I didn't like anything about it. And so I thought, you know what, I'm up anyway, why don't I create my own blog? And so why don't I put something out there? And I did. And so where do you start? So we mentioned some of these things. You've seen Facebook, you've seen YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter. And I'm going to give you some data as to how these different services work in terms of my own experience, in terms of reach. But then, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't also point out that you also have a social media inspired conference in 99 NICU. So this is where everything I think comes together. You've got obviously a very big online presence. You have many members. And so, NICU, 99 NICU, I think brings us all together. So those of us that have an internet presence, I would like to just thank the organizers again, because this really is so nice, to actually start to see social media becoming more academic. And I would say no one can argue this is an academic meeting. So how do you create original content? Well, you need a blogging platform. There are many to choose from. So at 4:30 in the morning that morning, when I was working with my son, well, it wasn't at 4:30, it was later on, but we came across WordPress. And WordPress was great because it was free. I like free, so it was free. There were many other sites, but for those of you who are wondering about one day getting into blogging yourself, I would recommend WordPress only because of its ease of use and the fact, again, that it's free. And you can pay for all sorts of things, but it works really well. So this really is the story of the blog. I don't know, is there a laser pointer here?
The green button.
Oh, yes. So this February of 2015 was the birth of all things neonatal. And you can see, I haven't drawn the trend line, but it's kind of up. What you'll also see, though, this is as of May 2017. So what you'll also see is you have ups and downs. And so one thing that I'll tell you is it never ceases to amaze me that things that I think are absolutely fascinating and will be a major hit, bomb. And then things that I think are an average post just go crazy. And so you never know what people are going to like, but you put it out there and see what you get. One of the things that I discovered very early on, because you'll notice back here in February, that first post really was, I think I did 2 or 3 that month, but they really didn't take off. And the reason they didn't take off is because I had yet to create a Facebook page. Once I created the Facebook page, which was a place for distribution of content, it really, at that point, started to take off. If you're really wondering where the major breakthrough was, the major breakthrough, I can't remember the exact date of it, but I went from, on the Facebook page, I think I was so excited, I had 300 followers, and I thought that was big. And then I posted something about the NRP changes of meconium and how it be now elective, or not recommended for prophylactic suctioning for the non-vigorous infant. And it was like a lottery machine. It was like a pinball, or not pinball, it was like a one-armed bandit. All of a sudden, it was just ding, 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 ding. I went, I think, about 1,700 people signed up that day for the site. So there was something about that. So these are the kind of metrics that I get. So for those of you that are on the site, and this is the blog site, but I'm able to tell, for example, that Scandinavia really doesn't like me. I know that, but that's okay. That's okay because I'm getting a lot of love these days from the United States. So this was back in May again, and this would have been just up till I think it was May 17th. So this just goes to show you why do we keep treating reflux in preterm infants? Was a smash hit at 6,200 reads or views at least, whereas other things weren't quite as common. One thing that's been fairly consistent throughout is these 3 countries, or actually, sorry, these 4 countries. United States, Canada, United Kingdom, and Australia tend to be the 4 big ones that, if I have to say month in, month out, are the big followers. All kidding aside about Scandinavia, I have seen many hits from Scandinavia. For whatever reason this month, they didn't seem to. So all content sites are not created equal. So what this is as of May 20th, these were the stats. So as of May 20th, there were over 16,000 people following on the Facebook page. And they're from all walks of life. So we've got nurses and doctors and a lot of parents, I think, are on there. I can't tell specifically in terms of metrics who's on there, but based on the types of comments I get, and sometimes I get emails from families who have a question, or instant messages or something like that, I can tell there's a little bit of family on there. Twitter, for a while I thought Twitter was dead, to be honest with you, and then all of a sudden it kind of took off. So I was sitting around 500 followers for a long time, and then all of a sudden in the last, I would say 6 months, and I don't know what it is about Twitter, although I know we're doing Periscope, so that's great. That might be helping. And then the WordPress, as far as people who actually follow the WordPress or sign up for WordPress, that's the site of all things neonatal, that's been limited to 544. It's now probably closer to 580. And I think I get it, because if you're on the Facebook page, I post the content there, so maybe you don't feel you need to subscribe, to the actual blog site. But so definitely in terms of distribution, I was asked earlier, what do I use to distribute content? There's far and away the most visibility comes from Facebook, as you can see the data there. Interestingly, this is not a very academic talk, if you will, in terms of lots of research, that I'll be discussing, because there really isn't a lot of research on social media use. This is one paper that came out. I actually wrote a blog piece on this paper and submitted it to BMJ, which was published on their site in response, because this was a study of 17 physicians who were on social media, and they wanted to get an understanding of what is it about. What is it about physicians and social media? What compels them to do it? Okay. Interestingly, they mentioned, the reason I wrote a response to this and a commentary was because they made a comment in here that although they had 17, it was small, they only had 17 people who responded, there was only one blogger that responded to the survey but then actually refused to be interviewed. So I figured they were making a commentary on social media without including a blogger, so I figured, why wouldn't I join in? So just to give you an idea of where social media is at, back in 2005, 8% of people who were interviewed said they use social media, okay, in terms of patients and healthcare professionals. That soared to 74% in 2014. And by 2012, so I'm sure it's even higher now, but by 2012, about a quarter of healthcare consumers, so your patients that are out there, the families that we're taking care of in the ICU, they were going to social media sites, okay? So the information's out there, and people are going to social media. So at the very least, if you don't want to write a blog, if you don't want to go to a Facebook page, it's good for you to know where people at least are getting some of their information. And I would encourage you, if you have families that are asking you questions and they seem to have some information but you're not really sure where they're getting it from, you can ask them, what sites are you on? Tell me where you're seeing this information, because then you can go and you can look at it yourself. Interestingly, in terms of the breakdown of distribution of who was doing social media, we are in good company. 76% of the people who were surveyed actually were in pediatrics. Interestingly, I don't get compensation for any of the blogging I do, or I should have stated that up front. I do this on my own time, with the exception of the relationship with the company somewhere here in Europe. But about a third of the people who are interviewed actually get compensated. And I do know of one person that I connected with on Twitter who is in Boston, and about 20% of his time is dedicated time for social media through the university. So the university actually expects him to do that, and he's quite good at it. So I think that you may start to see that in universities where people are actually compensated. In terms of what platforms people were using, I was a little confused because they said they didn't have any bloggers, but 13 said that they actually, I don't know if that's just what they are going to as opposed to using. But then I have to say I tried Pinterest or Pinterest, I think it's Pinterest. It was useless. I had no hits. Same with Tumblr, it didn't do anything for me. LinkedIn, I find, is wonderful for connecting. I've connected with a couple or three of you since coming here. It's great, but as far as distributing content, very few comments that you get on LinkedIn. You really don't have any feedback. There's no data to know, it could be seen by 10,000 people, but I don't know that. So that not getting the feedback is a bit of a disincentive. And then the other types as well are there. So the themes that came out of this, and I think are very interesting because there's recurrent themes that I'm going to talk to you about. Rugged individualism. Okay, so that was one of the motivations that people did. Why do people blog? Why do they do Facebook and post these things? Well, I can relate to this. It's in the Lone Ranger. You're out there by yourself. The Lone Ranger may be lost on you. It was an American television show. But in any event, this was the idea of this independent person who is, one of the early adopters. One of the other themes was uncertainty. And some of that because of lack of data. Okay, we don't know exactly how we're being perceived. So there's a lack of information coming back to you. Are you putting stuff out that people like? Are they not? How do they view it? And then also, social media is media, the chance to amplify your message. So the example being, right now I'm talking to however many people are here. It's on Periscope. It'll be on YouTube. So I may be seen right now by, let's say, 70 people. For all I know right now, online, I could be seen by another 300. Or on YouTube in the next year, I could be seen by another 1,000. So you get that amplification of your message, so you reach far more people. Time constraints. This was a challenge for people on social media. I can get to that myself, but the question is, will you need to, as a physician, reduce the patient time you have in order to do this, especially if it's embedded into your workload? And then there's a whole bunch of questions that come out about that. Should you be seeing less patients? So then, this is a question I get asked all the time. Aren't you busy enough? I do 18 weeks of clinical work a year. I'm the division head or chief of neonatology. I also am the medical director of the child health transport team for ages 3 to 12 for all of Manitoba, which is again lost because most of you don't know where that is. But it's a big place, really, really big. I once presented in Ireland, as I was telling you, that you could fit Ireland in about 10% of the size of the area that I cover. And I've got a map that I can show you one day. So I'm also chair of our finance committee for the Children's Hospital, so that's a busy job. And I sit on the fetus and newborn committee doing guidelines and so forth for Canada as part of that. So I'm pretty busy. But I also have I only showed you one, but I have 2 very busy kids. And that dog, he's finally sleeping through the night. He's now almost 4. So it is busy. Now my motivations. So, I think as a neonatologist, it's important to stay current. And I found that when I started to do this, I needed to stay up to date. I needed to constantly have information, because if I'm putting things out there, somebody's going to say something back, and I need to know what's out there. Okay, so it helps me stay current. I also believe in giving and you shall receive. So if I put something out there, I benefit from that two-way communication. Some people sent, and some of you may have done this, emailed back or made a comment and said, have you seen this article? Maybe I haven't. There's a feeling of catharsis. Sometimes like that experience I had with that article I didn't like. I just felt I needed to get it out. I needed to get that feeling out. And so by actually writing it, it made me feel good. Okay? And then making connections. I wouldn't be here very likely if it wasn't for the invite, to make me aware of this and help spread the word, so to speak. Now, I'm so arrogant as to say I'm like the Dalai Lama. But what I would say is I like this quote, the root of happiness is altruism, the wish to be of service to others. And that's definitely part of what my motivation is. I very much like helping people. Now, if you don't believe me, that was a segue into this slide. If you don't believe me, what I'm showing you here is back in 2013, as an exercise for my group, for team building of 14 neonatologists, I arranged to have a company come called Insights. And the purpose of Insights is to come and they do psychological profiling of all of the neonatologists or whatever organization you're in. And they give you a report about not just your psychological profile, but they talk to you about other people's psychological profiles. How do I interrelate with my opposite? So if I am, as an example, not as an example, this is where I sit. I'm a yellow. Yellows are creative people. We're kind of extroverted. And that stands for all the extroverts are on this side, all the introverts are on this side. If you are data-driven, you're a researcher, you don't do anything. You've got the paralysis of analysis. You can't make a decision until you have all the data. That's where you sit. And the people chuckling, and I know that's who you are. Now, the people over here, the reds, they're going to be bulls in the china shop. These are the directors. That's not me, by the way. That's my second color. As nice as I may seem, I do have some red in me, so I can be forceful. And I think as a director, you kind of need to be sometimes. The greens, and I bet you there's a few people here, given mid-cap being so dominant in Sweden, it's got to be that there's a lot of green. Greens are the feelers. They're the ones who are very, very influenced by making good decisions, but making good decisions that hurt the least number of people. Okay, so they're always weighing the impact on society and whether it feels right and so forth. And that can be very strong. I don't mean to say that's weakness in any way. I know very, very high functioning green-dominated people. But I sit here. So what am I? I am a motivating inspirer. Okay, so that was the description. So what is a motivating inspirer? So I question, and this, remember, this is 2013. This is 2 years before I got into social media. So that was my profile in 2013. So the helping inspirer is investigative, interested, and inventive. Well, I would say some of what I've done, without tooting my own horn, is inventive. Friendly and sociable. Sociable, that sort of says it right there. Sees innovation as a necessity, and I did. I saw this as an angle to actually spread the word, to get information out there far, far beyond the borders of the hospital I worked in. Creative and future-oriented visionary. So I know this all sounds like I'm bragging, but this literally was taken right out of the description. These were the highlights of my personality profile. This is what drives me. And I think that's what built me for social media. Now, what can Malcolm Gladwell teach us? For those of you who haven't read this book, it's great. The Tipping Point is about what causes fads to turn into worldwide trends and that sort of thing. And so he described connectors, mavens, and salesmen. And I think, again, he was describing the dawn of social media. This book came out a long time before social media took off. But when you look at what defines the connectors, they're people who link us with the world. People with a special gift of bringing the world together, and that is social media. You have thousands of people congregating on a site instead of 60, 70 people in a room. Mavens, word-of-mouth epidemics due to their knowledge, social skills, and ability to communicate. So you need to have the ability to get your word out, okay, and that's a maven. Salesmen are persuaders. Now, I will say this about social media. I've tried, for the most part, in my posts to try to be fairly even-handed about things, because I recognize that, as you'll soon hear, if I have a great idea and it spreads to the world, well, that's wonderful. If I have an idea that goes out and it turns out I missed something really, really big, it turns out this is a really, really bad idea, that might not be so good. Okay, so I try to always put a little bit of a fudge in there just to say, maybe we need some more work or not. So moving on to academic neonatology, this was a quote from one of my colleagues in the hallway. "I cringe when I see what you are doing. How can you call yourself an academic neonatologist?" I really love my colleague, I really do, but she said this to me and I thought, that's kind of a rough comment. But so, because I have a great deal of respect for this person, I thought, what, I owe it to her and myself to really ask myself, is this right? Am I doing something wrong here? So, M. Conti, who's a cardiologist, I started to read about the triple threat. Ryan, you may have heard of this. This was coined by John Hopkins. The triple threat was the clinician, the researcher, and the teacher. Okay, and so back in '99, which is well before all of this came out, he was worried. Okay, this was an editorial, and he made a comment that he said he thinks that the trend towards, to summarize it, the trend toward physicians no longer being these altruistic people who really don't care about income, they just want to help the people, right? He saw this changing, and he saw that there was increasing pressure to actually make money, okay, which meant more patients. More patients means less time for teaching, less time for research. He also saw the purse strings tightening of US regulators for research. And so he predicted that classrooms need to be modernized, utilizing computers and other innovative teaching devices. And you're going to see this theme of innovation again and again. So then jump ahead 16 years later, this is 2015, the new academic medical triple threat. Okay, this was in the Medical Post, which you wouldn't get here. It's a North American paper. But what this fellow said is, instead of research, teaching, and patient care, we should be recruiting for leadership, entrepreneurship, and innovation. He keeps hearing this innovation thing. So he talks about innovation is the process of creating something new or using it in a new way that results in at least 10 times the customer-defined value when compared to the competitive offering. The competitive offering in this case, I believe he was referring to, was sitting in a classroom. Okay, you can sit in a classroom, you can lecture to people. But imagine if you could do this on a computer, and if you could broadcast, if you could use Periscope, if you could use Facebook Live, if you could do all these things. I think they were predicting the dawn of the new triple threat. So the new academic triple threat, and I've sort of hinted at this, but grand rounds, at least where I work, might reach 100. If you go to the PAS and you're in a big, there's Pediatric Academic Society meeting, and you're in a major lecture hall and you have 500 people, you might get it to 500. But sharing the slide set or analysis through social media, sometimes I've hit 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000. And so you're getting your message out to a much broader audience. So if you still don't believe that this is academic, as I showed a friend of mine today, in Canada we have to do this maintenance of competency. And so every 4 years you have to come up with 400 credit hours. Not even halfway through my current cycle, I had hit my 400 hours. Okay, and that's because the Royal College of Canada recognized the blogging and the Facebook stuff when I spoke to them as personal learning projects. And I was awarded credits for every single one. And I racked up the credits so fast that I just stopped adding them because it was a waste of time to add more. I'd already met it. So the Royal College thinks I'm okay. And I can tell you that I've already been approached by my university, who's suggested to me strongly that this coming year I should apply for academic promotion because they saw what was happening with the blog and said that the blog was in and of itself academic promotion, getting international notoriety, therefore qualifies. So to my colleague I say, I am academic. So where can social media take you? Well, here, that's one place. But again, you reverse the trend of always me. I mean, many of you might have a PubMed search that you do, every week. It comes to your inbox and you get articles you're interested in. This is more than that. I get that, but I put it out there and then I get people coming back to me. Sometimes I get tagged on Facebook, Twitter. There's been a bunch of 99 in ICU posts I've been tagged on over the years. And certainly comments on posts are important. Philanthropy, this is very important to me. I'm also a board member of the Children's Hospital Foundation in Manitoba. And I came up with the idea when I hit 10,000 likes on the Facebook page that what if everybody gave me $5 just for a year and a half's worth of content. So I put this proposal together that we wanted to raise money for the NICU. It didn't turn out to be as big a success as I thought it was going to be because $5 a person at 10,000 people would be, of course, 50,000. But this was the final post called Hold Their Hand, and it was, we actually bought breast milk warmers, which we were in dire need of. And the final tally was actually about 10,500. So although I'm not out to make money myself, you can turn this into some real good and give back, which is what I've done. Travel the world. So I'm giving this lecture here. I'm giving the same lecture in the Maritimes in Canada in the fall. And then I was just invited to an American society meeting of pharmacy and therapeutics because they were interested in social media. And so I'm giving a talk in Orlando in 2018 on this topic. Next, I don't know. We'll see. This sort of has a life of its own. Advancing care in your own unit. One of the benefits of this has been as I put these things out and I meet so many people, and many of you actually may already be contacts of mine. Well, I know some of you are. So how many of you, and it's not a question, but it's just, I'm well aware, if you want to do something in a unit, you have a new idea, at least where I work, you hold a rounds. And I might get 20 people to the rounds. I'm missing nurses, respiratory therapists, dietitians, and I'm presenting this, and it might all sound great, but boy, when I try to roll that out, if I don't have that grassroots buy-in, if the nurses and the RTs and the dietitians and the managers don't all know exactly what the rationale is behind this, you don't get the same buy-in. And so you can advance. I found that by putting it out there, people look at it on their own time. The nurses look at it. They talk to me in the hallway. So it's not just putting it out for the world, but it also helps locally. As far as other things that have happened, this has happened frequently now. I've been approached with international trials. People say, I found you, very interested in what you're doing. I saw you wrote on this. Would you be interested in participating in a trial? There's a biotech company out of the US that chose us as a trial site for a new biotech product that we're currently working with them on. And then there's a medical device company that actually reached out and said that we'd be willing to work with them to improve a product and gain a better understanding. So the product is about $50,000 and they said they'd bring it out for free and just let us use it. And so you can imagine, although my colleagues, some of them may be skeptical about what I'm doing, they're certainly grateful when I bring in these expensive products. So I'm coming to the end of the talk. For those of you who like SpiderMan, I don't know if you do, but I know you've all seen SpiderMan. So the famous quote is, with great power comes great responsibility. And so I am aware that when you do put this out there, you have to be very careful. So what is the downside? Well, the biggest downside is you're putting your opinion out there for everyone to see. And as I suggested, sometimes I may miss the mark. In fact, this is very timely actually because of the talk yesterday on probiotics. I had a report that I put out on probiotics where I suggested that maybe things were not as rosy about probiotics as we thought. And I got this quote, and I know this person well. It might be small, but it says, "I love your blog, but you were just totally wrong about this. Probiotics are much more effective than any other treatments you have commented on." Okay? And so I was actually relieved to see yesterday, thank you very much for that talk, where at least you affirmed that there's at least under 1,000 grams, maybe things are not as rosy as we thought. But that's put out there for the entire world to read as a comment. Okay, so if they have a lot more respect than for him than me, the opinions might change. So then the other thing is, I sort of hinted at this. What if I put something out there that turns out to be dead wrong? In fact, what if it's dangerous? So one of the things that happened was I was contacted, I think it was on LinkedIn, by a neonatologist at USC in Southern California. And what he just wanted to let me, it was just an FYI. He said, "I thought you should know." He says, "Every one of your posts is used as an academic," there's that word academic. "It's used as an academic session for a unit in the Philippines that we're affiliated with. And so we do telemedicine, and we have these telemedicine sessions discussing your posts, and that's how they're getting their academic knowledge." And that sort of got me thinking that, well, that's great, but what if they adopt something, right? What if they adopt something that because they're Filipino, maybe they're different genetics, maybe they've got some hemoglobinopathies that I might need to take into account that I hadn't thought of. Or what about resources, as we heard about the Aleppo situation. Not every unit has the same resources that we have. And so I think all of that has to be taken into account. And so that's something I'm very cognizant of. Time, certainly for the people of 99 in ICU, I'm sure they would agree with this. As your audience grows, so do the questions and comments. And it's difficult over time to manage that. I'm not saying I don't want them. It's just, when you get 30, 40 comments, it's not always easy to respond to them right away. The other issue is you have to keep doing it, and that's what I learned. If you take a break, people forget about you. So there's this constant drive to put stuff out. Finding content, not always easy as it seems. I have about 15 sites that I look, and abstracts that I review. I review every day, every couple days, looking for content. And sometimes there's just nothing. And so you don't want to put out stuff that's bad. And then work-life balance. And lastly, and this is the second last slide I've got, you need to find inspiration. And I don't know about our organizers, but there have been times where I've actually thought, maybe I've had enough. Do I really want to do this anymore? And then things happen, like you raise $10,000 and you give it to the hospital, and that feels good. And then when I was at a bit of a low point recently, as far as thinking, do I really want to continue this? I was inspired by what happened here. And so you can inspire others to choose our field. You can affect the next generation. And so this is out of the US, and I'll just read it out to you. Dr. Narvey, I got this email one day. I am a teacher in Little Rock, Arkansas. For the past 2 weeks, I've had my students study various careers, culminating in an email interview in which they ask a professional to describe their career in a more personal way. Here's the email of one student who studied your career. I hope you will be able to respond. And then there's I hate to say it, Ryan, but because of American legality and so forth, the student was not allowed to reach out to me himself. Canada, we would have them reach out, but that's another story. But the student said, I am a 7th grade student doing a research career project. I chose becoming a neonatologist. I have already done some research about this, but now I want a first-hand look at the job. I am so interested in this job for many reasons. I've always found the medical field extremely interesting, so when many of my cousins who were born prematurely and had to be taken to the NICU, I decided to learn more about becoming a neonatologist. I love caring for babies, and I feel this job helps families across America. I want to have a very rewarding job, and this seems like the perfect one for me. Now, I don't know about you, but that melted my heart. And I thought, you know what? He found me on the internet, he read about the career, and now he wants to interview me. So I gave him a very lengthy interview in return. And that just got me going again. I thought, yeah, you know what? At least in Canada, I'm a rare breed, in case you didn't know that. Not a male neonatologist. The reason I'm rare is Canadians do not go into neonatology. Very few. I am the last trainee. I finished the program in 2002 in Winnipeg. I'm the last trainee they had from Canada. Knowing that I've inspired a 13-year-old boy to do this, I just thought it was very exciting. So my conclusions, I think there's an opportunity to help people far beyond your borders, and that's for me what the real drive of this is. I am convinced this is academic neonatology, and I will go one step further and say I think this is the future. I think that, and we've already seen the EBNEO. I think that's a great example of it. The EBNEO system that you've created, I think these online forums, I think that is the way things are going to go. And then you can have people all over the world discussing things rather than just me discussing it in Winnipeg and you discussing it in Stockholm. And the next point is, I think what Dr. Conti was talking about in '99 and then in the Medical Post article in 2015 is I think there's a recognition that the model of sitting in the classroom, I know we're doing that now, but the model of sitting in the classroom in medical school and just listening to the content when you are told you get the content, I think that's like a dinosaur. I think that's going to go away. I think people now are more and more sophisticated and they can get the content when they're ready. Maybe they're tired and they don't want to get it at that point. They can watch it online later. They can see a post on YouTube. So I do think the classroom is moving to virtual. And last is be careful out there because you never know how people are going to respond.